As we have discussed previously, Prime Minister Carney is moving to redefine the Canadian economy. Last Friday, his government introduced a bill that, among other things, takes the first steps to his much-touted one Canadian economy, replacing 13 provincial economies. The major step is removal of federal interprovincial trade regulations, with the goal to have legislation in place by July 1st. But let's see if Poilievre is willing to back up what he was saying during the campaign, if he became prime minister, with what he's going to have his party do as he watches from the outside. Carney's trying to get these bills through, most of which sound very much like conservative-leaning bills, and it's going to be tough for the Conservatives to really bog them down or nitpick these bills, because they do, if you listen and read the overall descriptions, kind of fit what the Conservatives were peddling as part of their campaign for the federal election back in the spring.
Yeah, but isn't that a good way for the government to run? I mean, like even with a minority government, you can do a lot of good, and when you have a solid opposition. And what the Liberal government is trying to pass right now, you're very right. It's kind of not, I'm not going to say smells conservative, but it's something that the Conservatives have talked about ad nauseum for a while. So when I look at what Liberals want to start passing that kind of sounds conservative, I'm not going to call it sounds conservative. You and I are always talking about it. It's right in the middle. It's called common sense. You go a little this way, you go a little that way. You know what? It's pretty hard to argue with common sense. And this common sense that the Liberal government is speaking of right now and wants to table and push through, it sounds good to me, whether it's left thinking or right thinking, because it's somewhere right down the middle. And the Conservative government has spoken to these things before. So you know what? I don't think it's smart. It's not just smart politics. I'm not going to say it's political decisions. This is common sense. Just common sense things being tabled, and they're trying to push them through. And common sense politicians will look at this and say, "Oh, okay, let's go ahead with this. I'm going to bitch and complain with it, but I'm going to vote for it." Right? I mean, you have to keep the politics involved at some point. But no, it's just common sense management of a country. Let's put it that way.
Well, certainly we need to get our own economy going, and become our own trading partner within the confines of our country. And we have so many goods available across the country that you just can't freely get them if you're in another province. And you don't have the freedom of mobility when you're looking at a lot of the trades, for example. Overall, there appears to be broad momentum and political unity around reducing internal trade and speeding up project approvals. But a clear division remains. Some are leading by example, and we have had a number of deals signed between provinces, and others with the Memorandum of Understanding being signed. But some, others are waiting for reciprocity, and a few are cautiously preserving jurisdictional safeguards. Well, now the strongest champions so far are Nova Scotia and Ontario. Now, conditionally, but they're out there pushing it. Pragmatic adapters, New Brunswick, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. Watchful but open, BC and Quebec. Supportive, they're supporting the narrative, but they're protective of their autonomy. And, of course, the federal timeline is all provinces agreed to fall 2025 benchmarks at the First Minister's meeting. Mm-hmm. So Carney wants to get the federal side of it done by July 1st, and we're looking at fall 20 of this year for the rest of it. I'm just looking through here. There were a couple of things. Quebec in particular was concerned about language and culture. Here we are.
Right.
Agrees in principle to labor mobility, but with special conditions to preserve language and cultural requirements. You know, a few years ago, there were a number of major projects underway in New Brunswick, and the number of tradespeople from Quebec coming in to work on these projects, and they were needed, was amazing. And yet there were tradespeople in New Brunswick and companies in New Brunswick, and there's one company that I can think of. He made like the solid surface countertops. Mm-hmm. They weren't granite, but it was, a solid surface countertop. And he ran into a solid surface trying to just even deliver countertops to customers in Quebec at the time. So there has to be give and take on this. And again, yes, I understand, Legault is trying to protect language and cultural requirements, but give it up. Like, we're one country. And let's keep this momentum going. We are closer to really building upon and fueling one national economy and becoming our, some of our own best trading partners than we've ever been. Mm-hmm. So let's not drop the ball on this one, for God's sakes.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's interesting too. I mean, this example that you brought up about contractor work in the construction industry across provinces. Gary, Quebec is absolutely dying for people with trade skills. Okay, there are provinces that might have, or organizations that are willing to do business here in Quebec. Well, if we're that desperate for people, why not? It makes perfect sense to me. I can understand the unions not being too happy about this, but look, things got to get done. That's just one small piece of the puzzle in allowing, interprovincial trade, which includes labor. There's nothing stopping, as opposed to just hard-held commodities in your hand, or manufactured products in your hand that you can transport across the country or sell across the country freely. There is also a question of manpower and expertise and experience. We should be sharing all of this. And like you were saying, Gary, we're one country, and we should be able to share our resources as such, and not just continuously run independently as independent businesses, which we can see most provinces already struggle with today. Let's just open up the trade barriers. Let's make this international trade within Canada, if you want to call it.